Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Sharon Stewart, founder of Anne Arundel Women Giving Together.
Welcome. What a wonderful way to celebrate our anniversary. It's so great to look out here and see everyone, and we thank you for coming to celebrate with us today. A little over 10 years ago, when I approached the Community Foundation about starting a women's giving circle, I never dreamed that Anne Arundel Women Giving Together would accomplish so much. And while I may have been the initiator, that is, I was the one that bugged the Community Foundation for about a year, none of this would have happened without the contributions of so many women leaders over the past 10 years. What's so powerful about the work that we do is our collective energy. Imagine 200 women coming together and making a positive change in our community. It's been exciting to see the group go from the 15 founders to 70 women at the end of our first year, and now more than 200 members. And our dream, thank you. Our dream for the next 10 years is to continue to grow and to build more partnerships with like-minded organizations and people in Anne Arundel County to make it a place that everyone wants to live. And I'd like now just to recognize the 15 founders who worked so hard to get things started. We literally met in kitchens and living rooms until we started growing. Kathy Brooks, who was our founding co-chair, and Betsy Kemry, who was also a founding co-chair, Shauna Chabot, Debbie Daughtery, Anna Greenberg, and Barbara Hofstein. And I believe those women are here, and I'd like them to just stand. We have a few other founders who either have moved out of the area or were unable to be with us today, and that's Pat Barlin, Colleen Baldwin, Joy Beer, Becky Kirtle, Linda Solomon, Susan Swayze, Helene Tenner, and Abby von Schlegel. And I'd also like to mention that we've had incredible support from the Community Foundation of Anne Arundel County, from both the board and the staff, and we wouldn't be here today without them. And so we thank them for their continuing support. And now let me introduce Anne Arundel Women Giving Together's 2016 president, Mary Grace Falwell.
Thank you. I'm truly so grateful to serve as president of this organization and carry on the legacy that started 10 years ago. The power of Anne Arundel Women Giving Together is the power of collective action and collective philanthropy of 200 amazing women. And I'd like to recognize that membership in 3 separate groups, and sort of squint because the lights are down. But could members of our leadership team, the steering committee, please stand? And could members of the 10th Anniversary Committee please stand? And finally, could everyone who's a member please stand, including people who've signed up or plan to sign up today? Thank you. In 2016, in May, after we award our grants this year, we will have awarded $800,000 in grants over 10 years. And of course, we award these grants to community organizations who seek to improve the lives of women and families in Anne Arundel County. And any representatives of those grantees, if you're here, could you please stand? Because you're the ones who are making the difference in our community. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And now, to introduce our panel, I'd like to introduce Karen Smith. She's the chair of the 10th Anniversary Committee and a past president. And anyone who knows Karen knows we're truly fortunate to have her leading this effort with her energy and talent. Karen.
Thank you, Mary Grace. At the core of Anne Arundel Women Giving Together is our primary focus of helping to tackle the needs of the community through the impact of our collective philanthropy dollars. We call it the power of one, multiplied by many. Today's forum is an example of the second all-important focus of AAWGT, and that is our commitment to educating our members about issues that will help us all become better informed decision makers when targeting our dollars and more effective and engaged philanthropists within our own individual lives. Last year, when the 10th Anniversary Committee began exploring the potential topics for today's forum, we were struck by all that is happening in philanthropy these days. The new strategies and vehicles that are now so widely available, the new ways to engage donors, both personally and meaningfully, and the mega dollars that are anticipated to flow into the sector in the coming years. And so we wondered about the impact that all of this might have on us as donors and on our community and the nonprofits that we serve. So we dug a little deeper, and the more we learned, the more we were exposed to, the more convinced we were that the topic we're going to address today, the emerging face of 21st century philanthropy, was both timely and a very important topic for us to explore with you today. So to help us understand all of this, we have brought together 4 amazing ladies. Let me introduce them to you as they join us on stage. First is Buffy Bowden Schwartz. They're seated over here. You'll see them come up this way. Buffy is a nationally recognized expert and author on the subject of women and philanthropy. As a leader both in the Baltimore area and nationally, Buffy has been instrumental in establishing giving circles across the country, including 10 years ago, helping us right here with Anne Arundel Women Giving Together. Our second panelist, Valeda Fullwood, is the author of a book entitled Giving Back, a tribute to generations of African American philanthropists. A critically acclaimed book, which Valeda has recently transformed into a touring museum exhibition. Valeda is a philanthropic leader in Charlotte, North Carolina, and we're pleased that she would fly up here and be with us today. Our third panelist is Jennifer Price. Jennifer is the president and CEO of the Bethesda-based Calvert Foundation, a leader in the field of impact investing as a philanthropic strategy. Calvert Foundation currently has $500 million under management globally, and you'll hear more about this as an emerging philanthropic strategy shortly. Ladies, we are pleased to have you here with us today, and we look forward to an engaging program. Our moderator today is Lisa Hillman. Lisa, I know, is well known by most of you for her amazing work in our own community. Lisa knows the world of philanthropy from both sides, And she also is happily a member of AAWGT, so we're quite proud of that. We're delighted to welcome Lisa today as our moderator. So I would invite you at this point to join me in thanking these four wonderful ladies. And Lisa, when we're done with our applause, the microphone is all yours.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, you can see me. Can you hear me? Okay, it's difficult seeing you, but I know you're there, so thank you all for coming today. And let me add my own note of congratulations to Anne Arundel Women Giving Together. I'm sure I speak for the panel when I say it's pretty impressive to sit in the audience, watch that tremendous video. And speaking of trends, I assume that's going to be on Facebook in the next 10 seconds. But it's tremendous to know what this group has done in the last 10 years and how all of you have made our community better. So thank you very much. You know, when you talk about philanthropy, it's a big word. It's been around a long, long, long time, probably since mankind began. But we're not here to look back. As Karen said, we're here today to look forward to the emerging face of philanthropy. And towards that end, let me proffer, does anybody have to leave really early today? No, good. But just in case, you know, you get buzzed or you have to duck out, let me offer this hypothesis for us to consider with the panel today. The emerging face of philanthropy, three things. It's female, and we're looking towards the future. It's female, you're going to hear why. It's very focused. You heard Karen mention, you know, the trillions of dollars that are supposed to roll out over the next 20 years. For people like me, the boomers. So the philanthropy in the future is going to be very, very focused. And I'll also proffer that it's fearless, meaning that new technologies, philanthropists are not going to be afraid of them. They're not going to be afraid to try new things, new ways of giving, new vehicles for giving. So that's the fearlessness. So we'll test that. Female, focused, and fearless. And with that, let me explain to you that the panel will have three parts. The fourth is actually you. So the first three parts are, I'm going to address one question to each of the panelists to give you a better sense of who each of these amazing women each of these amazing women is. Each is. The second section, we'll talk about trends. What's happening in philanthropy, what's going to roll out over the next 10 to 20 years. And the third section, we'll focus on home. We'll try and get personal, we'll look at what's going on locally, and we'll bring philanthropy home. And then the fourth section, of course, is we will open it up to questions from the audience. So as the first three parts of the panel unfold, please, in your own seats, be thinking of some really tough questions to ask these fabulous women, because we brought them here for tough questions, okay? All right, question number one. So let's begin. I'm going to address the first question to Buffy, because as Karen mentioned, Buffy was here 10 years ago to help kick off Anne Arundel Women Giving Together, so let's have her kick off the next 10 years. Buffy, tell us a little bit about the state of giving circles today, and in particular, are there any male giving circles?
Okay. Well, first of all, it's great to be here. Thank you for inviting me. I'm honored to have been both at your first annual meeting and annual gathering and your 10th. And I will say that although there may be a few more faces in the room today, the energy and the excitement and the synergy among this group of women is so palpable and it is so exciting. So I congratulate all of you, which I think deserves another round of applause. And I also think the fact that you're celebrating your 10th anniversary really speaks to the excitement about giving circles that remains today. It was around 10 years ago when Anne Arundel Women Giving Together started, and even before that. And at this point, there are thousands of giving circles across the country. Some are more structured, some are very informal, and others are in between. But they continue to roll out in various shapes and sizes around the country. And I think the future is very bright for collaborative giving. I have not seen kind of a wane in the growth of giving. More and more people are hearing about giving circles, both through word of mouth, but also through the incredible changes that have taken place in the last 10 years in terms of technology and telling our story. And so as more people continue to hear about giving circles and continue to learn about the excitement of leveraging your dollars with other people, and so you can have a greater impact in the causes that you care about, the more they're going to grow. So to answer your question, the future is very bright. In terms of men's circles, there were a number of men's circles that I had heard about years ago that were around, and I do not believe that they are still there. But I have heard that a number of men's circles have started across the country. But I will say that when I think of giving circles and I think of the growth of circles, for the most part, I think of it as women's giving circles. There are a number of men and women's circles as well. But for the most part, I think women have led the charge in the growth and the development and the sustainability of circles across the country.
Okay.
And I think that will continue.
Quick follow-up question for you. So why are giving circles traditionally female?
From my experience, both being part of a circle and helping to start one in Howard County, Maryland, and with all the circles that I've worked with through the years, I think that there's something about women coming together and learning together, socializing together, networking in a variety of ways, and then together pulling money and then making decisions on where that money goes is both empowering, it's fun, women like to celebrate philanthropy, connect with one another, and so there's lots of reasons that I think they're very popular for women.
Okay, thanks, Jen. Buffy, thanks, Buffy. Okay, now on to Jennifer. Jennifer regaled Karen Smith and me a couple weeks ago about a sort of a newer way of giving. And I'm going to ask her to sort of talk to us a little bit about something that's called impact investing. She could clearly stand up here today and give us a whole class on it. It might be worth our time to do that. We don't have that time today. So tell us a little bit about impact investing as a new way of giving.
Yeah, thank you. And just to echo Buffy, it's a pleasure to be part of this celebration. Calvert Foundation is a 25-year-old organization, really with the heartbeat of thinking about how we can use all our assets to do good. And volunteering, giving are two of them. Another one is your investment portfolio. In about 25 years, the concept was at our organization really brought to life with the idea of investing directly in communities and getting the money back with a return with that act. And so today, going forward, the heartbeat of impact investing is just that. It's how can you invest and achieve a social and a financial return. And really, it came into kind of a steeper awareness about 10 years ago at the time of the birth of this group, when Rockefeller Foundation invested about $20 million to really seed this concept with an idea that there isn't enough philanthropy or government money to solve all the complex problems in our world. What happens if we could crowd in private investment too? And that's what a core group of people have been working on with more intensity in this last decade. And really at the end of the day, what I see is that it's really kind of where all these Venn diagrams come together with where everyone overlaps is the community, and we're each bringing our own tool, our own resource into the community, the appropriate tool at the appropriate time. Our tool of investing can be very helpful for charter schools, for healthcare clinics, affordable housing projects, for businesses that are looking for loans, especially women. Women oftentimes don't have access to loans at a traditional financial institution as successfully as men do. So we lend to women in much higher numbers than the traditional banks. So that's just a flavor of what we do. I think the excitement is thinking about how you can kind of use all your wealth, all your resources for good. And this is an area to explore, to learn, and see if it might be for you.
So we're not going to let you off that easy. Can you give us an illustration?
Yes.
If you don't want to give names, that's fine, but just give us an illustration of how it works.
Yeah, would love to. So I will give an illustration that's close to this neighborhood. We're working in Baltimore very deeply right now. And we actually have two ways that you can purchase our note, which is a fixed income product, but there's many different ways you can engage. One is online at a platform called vested.org where you can buy a note for $20. Or you can go to your financial advisor and it looks like a corporate bond. You can buy it for $1,000. We have 15,000 investors in the note right now. So similar to this collective impact, there's this idea that a lot of people coming together has power in itself. With that capital, we aggregate it, we bring it all together in our balance sheet, and then we invest it. We invest it in a project. An example here, I would say, that might resonate is in Baltimore, there is a charter school that's expanding rapidly. It's an inner city school that doesn't have resources for various reasons to a bank loan. The property they have is not very valuable, honestly, because of where it's situated. And we provided that charter school a $2 million loan without taking collateral, without taking the building, by just simply underwriting or very much doing a deep analysis of that business and feeling confident that it was run with integrity, it was creating good impacts educationally, and it was run with a financial lens that would lead to success in the sense of us getting our money repaid. When that charter school repays our money, we then repay our investor.
Interesting. Thank you. And I'm going to tell a little tale about Jennifer. I hope this is okay. But you know, the connectivity we talk about, Anne Arundel Women Giving Together is a power of one multiplied, and how we're all somewhat linked and how we all know each other. Patty Baum is one of the sponsors of today's program. And as it turns out, her daughter works with Jen. So there you go. There you go.
And if I could just riff on that for a moment, Beth, if you ever meet her or have, she's fearless. And just, I admire her deeply and her ability to go after things with great commitment. Patty is too. And Beth has brought her mother into this impact investing and has spent about 2 years to make it her personal mission to bring her on board and bring her, therefore, her clients into a place where even if they're not investing, they're having this conversation around how do you want your investment portfolio to do good in this world? And if so, what can we invest in that makes you feel good about that part of your investment portfolio? And so it's a very fascinating, for me, up-close example of about a 2-year education and discussion that Beth and her mom have shared. And it's led to great outcomes. I think Patty, if she was here, would say she's in.
Excellent, excellent.
Yeah.
So thank you. Thanks for being here, too. So our next panelist, you know, I know you're going to go home and Google all 3 of these ladies, but you definitely need to Google Vlada, because she is, part of her charm and part of her story is something very visual, which we couldn't do here today. So you definitely need to go look at that. Photography is very much part of her world. I thought she said when we were talking a little while ago backstage that she's an introvert. So we're going to have to draw her out a little bit today. But she's an author. She's also a founder of the Giving Circle. And she likes to talk about the word philanthropy and what does it mean? Who is a philanthropist? You know, is it pardon me, gentlemen, is it the older white guy who donates millions? You know, what is a philanthropist? So with that, we'll ask Vlada to talk a little bit about philanthropy and how you define it.
Sure. It's a pleasure to be here and a part of the 10th year celebration. I'm also part of the Giving Circle, and this is our 10th anniversary as well. So we are sister circles in that way. And in fact, it was being a part of a Giving Circle and helping found it that seeded questions in my mind about the prevailing ideas about what philanthropy is and the imagery around who a philanthropist is. And many of our Giving Circle members, our circle is new generation of African American philanthropists. We're women and men. And during the course of our forming, we felt it was important to come together around our African American identity, and that was central. And recognizing that imagery around African-American philanthropists isn't common. And in fact, for some people, it's, African-American philanthropy is a new concept or idea. And I went to a Women's Funding Network conference, which is a big national group that supports collective giving. And I heard about a women's giving circle in Tennessee that had been in existence for 10 years and had raised $1 million over that time. And my circle was just forming, and I thought, wow, could we do that? And I thought, no, I doubt it. Not so much that the resources didn't exist, but recognizing a gap between the word philanthropy and the giving that happens in Black communities isn't generally identified as philanthropy, although it is. And that's when the idea for the book, Giving Back, was seeded to help lift up these stories of Black giving and help bridge philanthropy or broaden perspective. So in that way, I and my Giving Circle members, we define philanthropy, reclaim the root meaning, the Greek meaning, love of humankind, love of what it means to be human. And we really embrace that and try to break down any previous conceptions of what philanthropy is at this very narrow frame of only highlighting great wealth and prominent givers in the community and only defining it through monetary means. And so we do the whole time, talent, and treasure, and we believe truth in terms of telling your stories, your testimony, and bringing that into how solutions are identified. That's the definition that we embrace and that we integrate into our grant making. And as was mentioned earlier, the book that ultimately was published is now being transformed into an exhibit, The Soul of Philanthropy, and we through stories and images, photographic images, try to reinforce and reclaim that broader, more inclusive definition that takes philanthropy way deeper than your pockets into, really who you are and your identity and other facets than just fixed on the monetary or the financial aspect of it.
So you would say that every member of Anne Arundel Women Giving Together is a philanthropist?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So very good. All right, not to embarrass you, and not to put you on the spot, but you've been called the idea whisperer. Where did that come from, and what does that mean?
I can't remember the origins, but I interpret it as meaning being able to take wild ideas and kind of tame them enough to produce the outcomes or deliver on the projects that you want. So I have lots of ideas, and not all of them get wrestled in and handled enough or harnessed enough to actually produce something. But the Giving Circle is one, and the book and the exhibition are a few that came to life.
Okay, so feel free as we talk this afternoon to let us know some of your other ideas. Yeah, you put some what you asked for. Okay, so that's, thank you guys very much. So that's sort of part one. Maybe that gives you a sense of who's here today, and as you're thinking about your questions, feel free to direct them to anyone or just to the panel in general. So let's move into the sort of the second part of the panel, and that's on trends. I think, although I still cannot see you all very well, but if I ask for a show of hands, Americans are very generous people. We all know that. It's a very, very generous, we're a very giving country. In cash and in time, there are lots of philanthropists in our country. How much money was given last year to charity? Does everybody know that number? I'll check my notes real quick. $358 billion. It's a lot of money. How many nonprofit organizations there are in the country? About 1 million. Americans say that about 90% of households claim they give to charity. About half of Americans, again surveyed, say they volunteer, and the rest say they feel like they should. So, this is a good thing. So we're riding a tide of increasing philanthropy, and again, not to allude too much, but there are many articles coming out now that say the boomers are going to change everything, just like they're changing every other sector of society, and that the boomers are holding on to about $8 trillion worth of wealth that over the next 20 years well, somehow it get distributed. And my daughter's in the audience, and she's interested in this. So where's that $8 trillion going to go? So with this as just a backdrop for where we are and where the emerging face of philanthropy will go, let me direct a few questions now on the idea of trends to the panel. Let me start with, we'll go back to Jen, because clearly her first 10 years of doing what she's doing might lead to something else. So Jen, let me ask you, where do you see the trends for giving in the future, near future, 5, 10, 20 years? Will there be new vehicles coming out, new ways to give?
It's a great question, and I believe we're in a great moment of change in many ways in our society. In philanthropy, one that I see as enormous is the increasing impact of women. A few just kind of wind in the sails numbers that I see in my work is, even a bigger number, 41 trillion to be inherited over the next 20 years. And about 70% of that will go to the hands of women because we live longer. Interesting footnote on this, when a woman then inherits this money, if she's been in a partnership, generally she will change financial advisors if her spouse passes. She will often, 90% of the time, seek out a new financial advisor to create her own relationship with that money. By 2025, I love this statistic, 60% of the billionaires in the US will be women, 60. So I find that interesting. And even today, more than half of private wealth is overseen by women. Wind in the sails, I mean, those are pretty amazing numbers. And so I think the power of women and our relationship to money, and this room says it, and I see this across our country, our relationship to community as givers and carers, all that together is going to create something quite special. If we can support each other, I believe, in this journey of discovering how to bring our philanthropy, our wealth into communities. And so I think along those lines, one of the kind of new trends you'll see is actually more community with women. I think how we make decisions, what some of the research I've done that I find fascinating is we actually make decisions different than men, at least when you look at investment decisions, and this has been my lens, but women take longer to make an investment decision, but once they do, they're there. They don't go. Men tend to make decisions around investments quicker. But they also will move in and out. And so I have found, actually, in working with women along the lens of investing their wealth, that it's a longer conversation, it's a more robust, it's a different set of language, and oftentimes it involves more than just me. It's a community decision or a community education process. The decision sometimes is that woman going back and talking to her children, talking to her other advisors that she trusts. Sometimes the process involves education. So for me, that's bringing resources, bringing dialogue to her decision making. But I think that's one of the big changes we'll see is us coming together, women, knowing that we have this responsibility of investing our wealth for the next generation and for the planet and for our kids.
Thank you. Excellent. So another big topic in trends is who's going to be involved in philanthropy? How are we going to reach out to people that maybe aren't there yet? And I think that's part of Aleda's MO. So let's ask her, how about inclusion in the future? And specifically, if you could, talk a little bit about the next generation. People, if it's possible, people who are younger than you are. It's possible.
Yes, I think the last century, the 20th century, how philanthropy was defined was, the prevailing ideas we see around great wealth of Ford and Rockefeller, and I love the title of today's discussion because it's focused on 21st century and acknowledging the changes that are taking place, and also a sense of, I guess, empowerment that we can shape and frame what it is and what we need philanthropy to be. And so part of the, I guess, a key recognition is that Philanthropy has looked very diverse and has been inclusive over the centuries. It just hasn't been acknowledged. Only a very limited focus on who's a philanthropist and who can make a difference and who matters. And I think current trends are looking to broaden that, to make philanthropy more inclusive and to acknowledge the range of ways of giving as well as the range of givers. And also, issues are too complex today to limit it to only one designated group as philanthropist or single out only one way of having an impact. And so it's incumbent upon us to broaden the frame, is what I often say, that we're looking to reframe the portrait of philanthropy and to reframe philanthropy and to widen the lens so that it does include women's giving, it includes Black philanthropy and Latino giving and Asian American and Arab American and the whole range of giving that has been happening in our country all along, and not have it on some hierarchy, but a full spectrum of giving, and that does include the giving of money, but then also other ways people are having an impact with their other resources and their time and their kind of intellectual capital that they're bringing to solve issues. So I'm encouraged by this. I see it in the giving circles. I think that's one of the most vibrant aspects in philanthropy happening now, and identity-based giving. People, communities coming together, whether it's your identity as a woman, or as I mentioned earlier, all the other racial and ethnic groups, or connections to an issue or to a geographic place, that more people recognize their ability to have an impact and to make a difference. So I'm very, very encouraged by that. And some terms call it democratizing philanthropy, and I think that makes sense. And in part of the work I mentioned, the Solar Philanthropy exhibit, and part of what we're aimed to do through storytelling and imagery is to reinforce what my giving circle believes is the most potent philanthropy, is a blend of your mind, so all the analysis and research that you can bring to it and the data to make decisions about how you give, but then also it's your hands and all the things your hands can do, from writing checks to bringing someone in or lifting someone up or patting someone on the back and it being encouraging. And it's also your heart, and just acknowledging that we're drawn to certain ways of giving as individuals or collectively with our group. There's just certain things that move us, and maybe it is women and girls because we're a women's giving circle. And then your soul, and for us that's who you are at your core, and recognizing that. So if it is your identity, for me as a Southerner or as a woman, bring that to how you give and embrace it. And when it's a blend of all the above, the heart, mind, head, soul, it's very potent and powerful. And also one of our aims was how to engage younger generations. We were fortunate enough to receive a major grant from the Institute of Museum and Library Services to develop the exhibition and then launch it. And our primary focus is on colleges and universities to start the education and conversation about philanthropy and defining what's possible early on. And so if philanthropy wasn't a draw, an exhibition about it, we knew that was kind of a barrier. That's not like the students would be running in droves to come see that. So we looked at ways to have some appeal. And one, again, the imagery, use of technology. We know about trends in mobile giving and digital strategies to engage donors. And so a lot of aspects of the exhibition include technology and use of iPads and your smartphones to access stories and imagery and pose questions about folks giving, and to inspire younger generations to start thinking earlier and not to have to work as hard as we do in our conversations with adults to kind of tear down all these misperceptions and ideas about who and can't engage. And with younger generations, introduce that more inclusive definition and possibilities, so that they can just delve right in and see themselves as givers and donors and philanthropists, and that people who can have an impact in their communities.
Thank you. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Which they, which they're attracted to, which have appeal for them.
So thank you, because you underscore a point. We all know that those who volunteer tend to give where they volunteer, and you were just saying that. That's a great way to get the younger generation involved. If they're volunteering, chances are they're going to give when they have it to give, because they're still accumulating something, when they can give their dollars in addition to their time. And giving time is philanthropy. We forget that too. So thank you for bringing up both those points. Okay, let's move into our third big trend, great big one. And let me, by way of introducing this question to Buffy, how many people here are on Facebook? So it's a good number. Okay. I was at a conference yesterday, and part of this conference was about Facebook. Facebook has done something very subtle recently, and so subtle that maybe you're not even aware of it. You know when you scroll down right now, instead of having to click on the video, you scroll down and the videos pick up right away. Facebook picked up some new technology to do that, and video is becoming sort of the next big wave to catch our attention. We're visual people, we don't like words, we have short attention spans, so a 60-second video on Facebook is really going to catch our attention, which is why that video has got to get put up, what we just saw. But with that in mind, with the fast-changing trends in social media, how does all of this impact philanthropy? How can we harness it? What are the trends? And Buffy seems to be a pretty good follower of that. I'm also going to ask her to mention things like crowdsourcing and all these other funny words and where they fit in.
Okay, sure. Well, let me ask all of you, how many of you have given online before? Okay. How many of you almost exclusively give online at this point? Okay. For myself, I can't think of the last time I wrote a check to give. It's amazing how much, just in the last couple of years, online giving has become enormous. And crowdsourcing. Does everyone know what crowdsourcing is? When you have giving days, or when you have someone who's raising money, or an organization raising money for a certain cause, it's a lot of people giving smaller amounts to meet the needs of the fundraising endeavor. And that has become an incredibly powerful tool for people to engage in philanthropy. And just like Beleda had mentioned, democratizing philanthropy, I have long felt giving circles have helped to democratize philanthropy and have a much broader and open table for those who want to engage. And I really believe that the future of democratization of philanthropy rests with vehicles and opportunities like crowdsourcing or online giving or mobile giving. And if you haven't heard it yet, a lot of one of the terms that nonprofits are using is mobile enabled. So everything that they send out in terms of fundraising that needs to be mobile enabled for the future, so that social philanthropists, all of us who are raising money or trying to engage others in causes that we care about, can do it better and faster through technology and through opportunities through a nonprofit that are mobile enabled. And so I feel like nonprofits in the future have a great opportunity to really invest in their social media platforms. And it's Facebook, of course, it's Twitter, it's some of the social media platforms that have been around for a while, but it's new forms as well, especially to engage the next generation, like Instagram and Snapchat and even Pinterest. There are so many interesting, creative new ways that smart nonprofits are taking a look at and investing in to be reaching out to new donors, to major donors, and to engage their current donors. So a lot of what you want to be doing through social media and through crowdfunding and through online giving is to think about, we have an opportunity to think about how to tell our story, how to tell it faster, better, more visually, and then provide increasing opportunities for people to engage in that story and then engage in the mission of the nonprofit or the things that we all care about. It's actually, I think, a really exciting time right now. I have seen my own children, as well as a lot of younger people, but not just younger people, really having a better sense of what's out there that they may want to engage in and how they can do that. And so many people are now giving through their smartphone, let alone online giving opportunities on the web. And also what nonprofits are doing, and I think doing successfully more and more, is taking their online giving and marketing and communication strategies and then having a strong social media opportunity for their overall strategic communication strategy. So incorporating all of those things, thinking about fundraising, thinking about marketing communications and development, and how they all wrap up in one, and thinking about the new tools and technologies that are available.
Thank you, thank you. So Beth's message is, if you're a not-for-profit out there, go hire a 15-year-old.
Actually, 2 years ago, maybe, but honestly, even in the last 2 years, it is amazing how many for-profit and nonprofit entities are taking this very seriously, and how many social media jobs are available now.
Interesting, interesting. Okay, thank you. All right, so that was a little bit about trends. Now we're going to move into the third part. Remember, you're number 4, so get ready. The third part is to try and bring it home. And some of these questions might be a little bit down and dirty, but you know, why not, right? We're here in Annapolis on a Sunday afternoon, so let's. I know in this audience everybody's a philanthropist here today. I know that. Many of you are grantors. There are many grantees. Everybody's a volunteer, so it's a real mix in the audience today. And there's some people that are actually fundraisers, hardcore development professionals or fundraisers, and spend their days doing that. So with that in mind, let me pose this question. I don't know, I'm just going to pose the question. Whoever wants to take it can. But the 3 of you are also donors, I'm sure. Give us an example of where you've seen in your own lifetime fundraising done well, and also where you haven't. And another way to say that is, give us an example of where something a not-for-profit has done that's really irked you, because we can learn from mistakes as well.
Good question.
That's right. Anybody? Becky, go ahead.
I will say that very few things irk me, because I love the nonprofit community. I don't want to have anything bother me with organizations or issues that I care about, with the exception of, and it still happens to me today, when I give a gift to a nonprofit and my husband and I get a letter back thanking us. And I know in this sector it's talked about a lot, but it really surprises me that that continues to happen. And so my suggestion would be that for anyone who's raising money, or for giving circles who are thanking donors, or whatever it may be, to really understand who's giving to you. Because when I get a letter that, thanks my husband and I, or, doesn't use the name that I wrote the check, right? I said I hadn't given a check in a long time, put on my credit card, for example. And it feels to me like the nonprofit just isn't paying attention to be thinking about how to leverage the fact that I care about the nonprofit, and that I may have other people I could bring to it, or whatever it may be. So that's one thing that I would caution about it.
Anybody?
Yeah, I'll share. This is one of the things that compelled me to want to write a book, and particularly I'm a visual person, and I like stories, and so I collaborated with a photographer on this, but the messages that images tell, and then in nonverbal ways and verbal ways we tell our story as nonprofits. And so when I receive material that still tells the old 20th century stories about philanthropy, who's involved, and where oftentimes African Americans or people of color are only on the in need side, or only as the beneficiaries, and so that it presents that imagery in photographs or in the stories that are shared, and the story isn't as inclusive or as relevant today or reflective of the real world today, in showing the range of beneficiaries as well as a range of givers, and especially if you want my dollars. I'd like to see my story reflected. and or a more balanced story presented in imagery as well as in writing. And so that's a real pet peeve when I see that, and a major turnoff.
You know, similar to that, one of the opportunities I see right now with a lot of nonprofits is the opportunity to bring in some more young voices to their work. So boards are old people. You know, they're all us older people. And I always sit there and I think, why not bring a 20-year-old onto your board and give them that opportunity to be exposed to the inner workings of a nonprofit at a younger age? And really open that world rather than it be a later in life experience or a earned experience through decades of on-the-job kind of opportunities. I just think there's a tremendous opportunity to think about how to bring younger people into this work. And I always think boards could be a brilliant opportunity, especially as we think about the future and a lot of the online and the Facebook and the digital media. They're on it better than I am. And so I find, you know, there's great value that they can bring to conversations while learning the wisdom and some of the learned opportunities of that experience.
Excellent, thank you, thank you. Since Facebook keeps coming up, I'm just going to throw out real quick before I set it up for the next question, Facebook story. I don't know how many of you picked this up. I think the Washington Post wrote this, and it happened recently. We all saw that terrible image of that little boy who drowned, the Syrian refugee. His body was washed up on the shore. Yes, I mean, you all remember that terrible, terrible image. And I'm sure because we're all empathetic people, how awful that was. And you look at that and you think, what can I do, you know, in Anne Arundel County to touch that terrible, terrible world crisis that's continents away, right? Well, Facebook brought together a group of women who are doing something. A woman in Greece who lived very close to where these refugees were and are still landing, saw them walking past her balcony, and as she described it, she felt helpless. What could she do to help? Imagine if we went outside today and coming down College Avenue with droves of people, just refugees. What could we do? So she saw these people passing by her window, and she got in line and said that what she did was run outside with a stroller, a little old stroller, and she gave it to someone, a mother who put her child in, and she used the stroller not only for the child, but to carry her belongings. So that little thing just helped. And from that, because a woman in Washington, D.C. and someone in I think South Carolina picked up on it, they've created an online giving organization. I think they call it One Stroller. So is it a big deal? No, but it's doing something. So with that as an entree to the next question, let me ask, how do you know when you give a gift if your gift matters and if it's doing any good?
It's a great question because, you know, you ask personal. A lot of my giving I give abroad. I spent a lot of time as a teacher in Africa, so I have a great passion for teaching, and I have a great passion for systems change. Not necessarily us bringing our technology into another environment, but bringing resources for others to kind of lift their own environment up. So I give a lot of my money internationally, and oftentimes I can't look in the people's eyes. I can't touch the group that I'm giving to. So you know, a lot what I work on is my gut, that this aligns, something you said, with your soul. And when it aligns with my soul, the work that someone's doing, I give over and trust that they're going to do the best they can with that money until I'm proven wrong. And I generally am, once you got me, you got me. I'm a woman. So I don't stop. So there's that. Now, a little closer to home, I'll admit I do a blend of giving and volunteering and giving oftentimes. And so, you know, I never put restrictions on the money I give for it to be for that program. I have a lot of empathy for nonprofits that underfund necessary infrastructure, like communications, like fundraising capacity. So if they need my money to fund that business, not actually the program, so be it. I'm very comfortable with that. And that's usually, my local giving I find is to groups I also give my time and my treasure to. Yeah.
Yeah, I would add that knowing yourself and really doing a personal assessment about how you want to change the world and what matters to you. I think it's important to even know what the proper outcome looks like. And so one of the things that helps me, and it's a parental read for my Giving Circle, I encourage you to Google it and read it yourself. It's the 4 Traditions of American Philanthropy. It's a very short essay. And it breaks up philanthropy. It helped me really organize the different ways of giving. And so, and it talks about the evolution. There's a lot of detail, but in summary, there is philanthropy as relief. And so that's like give a man a fish, feed him for a day. And sometimes that's really important. I mean, you just spoke of sometimes, you know, a nonprofit needs a new computer or some immediate capacity needs and infrastructure needs that you can help address that. But there's always need, but it can be very fulfilling, and sometimes we're just kind of drawn to giving that way. Another tradition of giving is giving as improvement, and so that's like scholarship funds that provide new opportunities for folks to kind of lift themselves up or support their education and development as people, and that's like teach a man a fish, feed him for a lifetime. And then there's philanthropy as social reform, which is change, not charity, which is more like system change and reform. And some of us are really compelled toward that, social justice giving, et cetera, and really want to see new opportunities and access created and more, I guess, equity in a particular realm. And then the other tradition is civic engagement, which is just connect. I don't know the exact route, but I think bringing folks together to help find their own solutions is key. So oftentimes that's convening and maybe a little education piece and bringing people together around issues. So I give in all those kinds of ways, and our Giving Circle focuses in those ways as well. And I think if you know kind of what the change you're seeking, then you can be a better judge of whether you've done it.
And I would echo that my own personal giving tends to be more along the lines of what you both said, giving from your heart. And as a woman, you pretty much got me once you have me as a donor. But I do think that in terms of the sector, the trend continues for more accountability from nonprofits, both from donors and from the funding community, from foundations and corporate funders and others. And so what I think that provides is nonprofits an incredible opportunity to take the information that they are required more and more to give to their funders and use that as an incredible storytelling vehicle and storytelling machine through all of the technologies we've discussed and through even basic opportunities to communicate with donors and funders and prospective donors. And so with more data comes more storytelling opportunity. And so hopefully nonprofits will continue the trend of taking that and really telling our story as effectively as we possibly can. And that's how donors will have a better opportunity to really know where their money is going and what kind of impact they're having. And, you know, just by way of example, the word impact is used a lot, but I also think it's really effective when it's used appropriately. And so I've seen a trend where nonprofits, instead of releasing annual reports, are releasing impact reports or monthly impact statements, and then utilizing, again, a variety of tools to be reaching out to their donors. And so thinking about it a little bit differently.
So the words we use are really important.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, that was a little bit of a loaded question because if you remember that when we're getting together, I think this organization does an outstanding job of making sure that everybody knows where their money is going and the impact that it makes. I think that's one of the strengths of a Giving Circle, and this group does a great job. There's at least one other question, but I think, you know, sensing there's lots of questions in the audience, why don't we go to your role now, and let's see what questions you might have. I hope you have some. We have two people, don't we? Bronwyn, where's Bronwyn? We have Linda Egbier, who is our future president, and we have Bronwyn Bowden, who is a past president, flanking the audience. And if you have a question, you can stay where you are. They're going to pass you a mic. You can address the question to anybody on the panel, or just the panel in general. And you know what? It'd be great if you said your name, because you're also famous.
My name is Linda Egbier. I'm a past president of the Philanthropy. 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 I'm a past I'm Barbara Hofstein.
Barbara.
And I wanted to ask, because it was just in the news, and I wonder what impact it has, is the Wounded Warrior CEO and I think the associate were just indicted for taking some money.
Do you want to make that into a question?
Oh.
Just make that into a, what's,
The question is, what impact
okay.
does that have on philanthropy and also really on this social media kind of thing? You know, there's scams everywhere. What impact does that have?
Well, I'll say, for me, I would say this is a lesson in the importance of crisis communications for a nonprofit. There are often times that things are going to come up, and if there's a team in place and a plan in place to handle it, that can be very effective. But I do think that there are questions about the sector at times, and that something like this certainly does not help. And then when it runs with social media, I think it can be really challenging. That said, there are a lot of organizations like Charity Navigator and others that provide information, and it's readily available to all of us if we have questions about the groups that we're funding online.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, add to that just the aspects of social media in terms of reaching new prospective donors and fundraising. But then another is when stories like that one break, or when communities or donors have issues with a nonprofit, then social media amplifies it, and immediately. So you have to be prepared, and then also conscious of that other facet of social media as well that makes it a little tougher on nonprofits. Maybe it helps with the fundraising, but it also, in terms of credibility and reputation, that's also an aspect you have to heighten your focus on and resources around. And as donors, more responsibility to do the research through mechanisms to check, because a lot of different groups are able to come before us, whether it's on Facebook or wherever, and new issues that very compelling, but you have to do your research before you write a check or give electronically.
Okay, we don't need everybody. Did you want? Not everybody has to respond. Okay. Another question, Barbara, just real quick to that point. I think if you look at broadly in this country, giving has generally gone up. There's a you would see it on a chart like that. And even in times like the United Way crisis, there was a United Way crisis about 10, 20 years ago, even then, overall, it continues to rise. Now, that organization may have a hard time with its donors, and that's where people like Buffy come in, because communications is important. But overall, it probably doesn't hurt. It's not going to hurt the charities, I don't think, right here in town. So overall, giving still continues to rise, even though we get these bad eggs every once in a while. Okay, other questions? Name?
Anne.
Hi, Anne.
Neal. This question has to do with giving circles and crowdsourcing. As a longtime grant maker and donor, I know giving wisely can be challenging and can involve a learning curve. What are some of the examples you've seen around the country or in your own experience of getting wiser, smarter, more effective in your giving strategies in giving circles?
We both can speak on it. Well, I would say that learning together is great. I mean, part of the collective, one of the benefits of the coming together is how we educate each other. And our members come from a range of sectors, some in philanthropy, some in the financial industry, some in the nonprofit world as far as executive directors and running nonprofits and business world. So just that aspect just raises our awareness. The questions that we pose, especially during our grant making cycle, and even what to focus on based on community issues. Different people come in with perspectives, and then talking it through, because as a group, you have to process it and work it through. So just our insight on issues is just raised so much from the start, and then through our grant-making process, again, doing it collectively. It is an ongoing educational process as well as a philanthropic endeavor, and that's one of the biggest benefits. And in doing so, we've learned so much that we feel compelled to share it with the community. So we host forums and organize events that share some of the things we've learned through our grant making with the broader community, and hopefully influence individual donors to maybe pose some of these questions before they give.
And I would echo that and just say that, in addition to continued learning among Giving Circle donors, a strong relationship with the host organization that hosts the Giving Circle is, I think, very important for continuing to learn and giving smarter and giving better. And, when community foundations, which are frequent hosts of Giving Circles, first started circles, when we were looking back at it 15 years ago, the relationship wasn't necessarily one of the first things that was thought of between the host organization and the circle when they were forming. And I think now, 15, 17 years later, more circles and more foundations or host organizations are really focusing on that relationship. So the experience that comes from the host organization, they can work very closely with the circle to talk about grant making or, organizations in the community that they've already vetted that the circle may be interested in funding, or whatever it is, to be able to give smarter and give more effectively. And also, again, talking about online, there are so many wonderful online resources that are available to circles and to donors to be learning more about the grant making process, organizations, how to give effectively.
There was a lady in the back. Please tell us your name.
Sure, thanks. I'm Wanda Stansbury.
Hi, Wanda.
Just want to thank the panel. This is great information, but I have a question specifically for Jennifer. I'd like to understand a little more about the charter school example. Our investors, you made it seem like, well, you give them $2 million, you get it back, you pay the investors, but I suspect charter school, it's going to take some time. Mm-hmm. And tell me more about what the investors' expectations are. What's the balance in terms of social return and financial return? And what are you selling them? Or what do you, when you sell these notes, what are you saying to them about how long this is going to take? Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. That's a wonderful question. So when we invest for both social and financial return. So we sell our investors the impact of their investments just as much as the financial return. For some people, that means that they see the value of investing and the return of that investment as being the social plus the financial equal their total return. So they actually quantify the impact of their dollar. And similar to something we were talking about earlier, we produce an impact report every year that quantifies this in terms of what their money is doing in communities as translated into community impact. Very structurally, we sell a 1, a 3, a 5, a 7, and a 10-year note. And those notes have a rate of return from 0.5% to 3%. So the investor's selecting the investment that suits their personal desire, whether it's a shorter-term investment or a longer-term investment. Because we have investors that range throughout that span of investment term, we're able to take the money that we raise and have it suit the need, and let's take this example, the charter school again, suit the need of that charter school. Oftentimes, that's why our money is so valuable, is we will look at that charter school and understand potentially, say they're adding 100 students a year for the next 5 years. The first 2 years are probably going to be more challenging for them to repay our loan than perhaps when they've reached that 500 new student mark and they have some additional now cash that they can use to pay us back. So we'll very much actually structure our investment so they don't pay us anything in the first 2 years, but perhaps they begin paying in year 3. So we very much tailor our investments to suit the needs of the investments that we make and the investees. As a result, over time, we've lost less than 1%, actually less than 0.5% of all the money that we've raised and invested. We're very patient. Sometimes we have investments that are 15 years. For example, we're doing a lot of work in Detroit. Detroit's real estate does not pencil out right now. You know, you can't put money in and traditionally get your money out because real estate is not earning income in that community quite as robustly. So we have to lend in Detroit at 15, 20 years our money, not 5 or 10 years. So I'm getting a bit into the weeds, but it's a very handcrafted piece of work we do, because really at the end of the day, we are a deep social impact investor. And I'll just put an asterisk on this whole conversation. As one goes down this path of even exploring impact investing, back to the first question we heard about even philanthropy and the dark side of philanthropy, there is a dark side of impact investing, where now, you know, people are seeing this opportunity to woo investments by saying that they're going to be green, that they're going to do great in community. And it can be just face paint. So there is a spectrum of impact investing emerging too. Like we see a spectrum of philanthropy, some good, some bad. Like philanthropy, it's a growing field, and there's infrastructure in place to ensure it grows with rigor. Like GuideStar is one resource, similar to charity online. So doing homework is needed here too.
Thank you. Okay, we have time probably for 1 or 2 more questions, and I'm assuming the panelists, you're all staying. Yes. Okay, so if your question doesn't get answered here, they'll be around afterwards. Yes.
Great. Hi, I'm Lauren Maddox.
Hi, Lauren.
Hi, due east. My question is about, actually, Danita, you mentioned looking backwards and 20th century philanthropy, a lot of the big foundations, you know, that came to be in that last century. And what you're starting to hear now is about sort of the accountability for the philanthropic sector writ large. And a lot of it has to do with really looking back at all the dollars that have been poured in through the philanthropic sector and saying, hey folks, we have too few truly success stories, population level outcomes that we can point to. Smoking, drunk driving maybe, seat belts, you know, teen pregnancy, where we've actually moved the needle and started to move them backwards. So my question is, with the new face of philanthropy, the new trends as you look ahead, are we going to do better on holding ourselves accountable as a sector to actually moving the needle? And that includes grant makers too, not just the nonprofit side, because we're putting a lot of pressure on nonprofits today is about outcomes. But the other side of the table is the grant maker side. So I'd love to hear, with all we've talked about of what's new, how are we going to do better on accountability?
I'll just take one piece of that quickly and then move it down, because I think this is a great question. You know, this is where I jump up and down oftentimes in rooms, because these large foundations, 95% of their assets are in endowments that are invested in things that are not having positive impact. And that's where my voice gets really loud, that, you know, the 5% grant making, I'd love to hear your views on that. There's a conversation there, but there's also a conversation about the other 95%. And all investments have impact, negative, positive, and neutral. I don't think it's the job of the NGOs to keep cleaning up for large corporates anymore. And the fact that there's still a lot of investments out of the endowment that are not lifting up the positive in our planet is a conversation. And I'm not a Pollyanna. I don't think it's going to be a light switch where everyone wakes up one day and they're all, you know, investing green, the divest, invest movement has taken off. But right now, in a lot of these big places, there's a Chinese wall, and that money is not really held accountable to the same social outcomes as the grant-making half is. And I think that that is really a conversation that's well past its shelf life.
Well, when you reference the 20th century philanthropy and some of the stories, and one of the things I'm hopeful about, and also one of the examples from 20th century philanthropy that I get excited about for some time, and that's the Julius Rosenwald story. I don't know if you're familiar with it. There's a new documentary out. Yeah, it's good. I love it, yeah. Anyway, if you're unfamiliar, Julius Rosenwald, he was the president of Sears Roebuck at the turn of the century, and he created a fund, and he's famous for creating Rosenwald schools. And I just think his story is so powerful, this super wealthy Jewish philanthropist, and how he partnered with African American communities and communities across the South to create 5,400 schools. And so it's one of those stories that had such impact, and I think there's so many lessons and I guess a blueprint in possibilities for how we can engage in philanthropy in the 21st century, of how he leveraged his wealth through matching funds, so it wasn't all reliant upon him, but then also acknowledging the resources in really impoverished Black communities, but there were assets and resources there, and recognizing that, and partnering with thought leaders of the time, Booker T. Washington, to learn these insights that he wouldn't ordinarily know. So not just rushing in with the solution, but gaining some cultural insights and building some relationships, and then how he approached it with people with very small financial assets, but yet had an expectation that they had something to bring, and created what was, essentially the Department of Education for Black Americans in the South, and transformed a whole generation. People, fresh out of, Jim Crow and the slavery era, and created this opportunity to have people educated that just ripples and, has personal impact on me. So I think that's an amazing story, and would encourage people to learn more about it and how we can be more inclusive and have an impact and be accountable today.
So we're getting close to the champagne time. But I think there was a lady up front here who had, no, you're okay? Okay. Is there a burning question?
Oh, it looks like it.
This will be our last question.
Couldn't see me before, huh?
No.
Well, the lady.
We need your name.
Carlisa Finney.
Hi, Carlisa.
Hi. The lady has started us the answer kind of to the question that I had, which is if there are any examples or suggestions for how to reach out and recruit prospective diverse donors in one's community to include and or celebrate the philanthropy that's already going on.
Well, I think just building relationships, just starting that, being conscious of, what the intent is behind it, and looking across generations, as was mentioned earlier, older generations as well. And I got to add that my mother was inspired to start a giving circle after our giving circle was established. So she's part of a women's fund that it has. Our circle is intentionally kind of intimate at about 35 members. Hers is well over 100, and
that's great.
Driving like your circle. Right? So I think just being conscious of what your intent is, and if it's not through, like our circle is intentionally, African American focused, all of our members are African American, and we look to partner. We're not necessarily looking to make our circle inclusive as far as the membership, but just our existing helps make the philanthropic community in Charlotte more inclusive and reflective of the community. And we partner with a range of organizations, other giving circles, but then also just other civic and philanthropic institutions in town. In fact, we hosted a screening of Rosenwald for Black History Month, and partnered with several Jewish organizations in town, and to lift up this story. So be creative, and don't limit a partnership or relationship or membership in narrow ways. Explore ways that are responsive to your organization's needs, but then also other organizations or other individuals' needs as well.
So with that, we're going to give the idea whisperer the last word, the last whisper, and we'll invite Mary Grace to come back up and close. And I guess on behalf of the panel, thank you guys. You've been a great audience. Thank you.
So thank you so much, Lisa, Buffy, Beleda, and Jen. I feel like this is a really hopeful look to the future. There's more people that are going to be giving. There's more money. It's going to be more diverse and inclusive. And there's, the ways that it can have more impact. I felt like there was a lot going on this panel. It's really exciting, and I think it'll be great to help us, our organization, think about how we give, and I'm sure everyone who's in different organizations and individually. So thank you. It was really great. So, anyone who's inspired to be a member of we have a table outside with the lovely Tanya waving her arms. So please look for Tanya if you're interested in giving. We love people who are interested in minimum engagement. You can write a check, never show up. You can come to us to events. We love people who want to get engaged at any level. Watch out, we'll suck you in. It'll become your life. It's all worth it. It's all wonderful. Whatever you want, we'll make it happen. And then I want to thank our many sponsors. This was funded outside of our normal giving. Our events are never this fancy. So, don't expect it this nice when you come to our other events. But since we are fancy, please join us in the lobby for the reception. Woo! That's it. You did my cover on the whole introverted thing. I did. I'm sorry. I heard you out. That's all. Good job, guys. Thank you. Thank you. Should we walk down and? Yeah. All right. Thank you. Thank you. And I love that I said it. You're wonderful. I didn't tell me you were the star. I saw you in the audience.